It's more than just you overcoming it with your mind, right? Habits don't give you freedom. A lot of it's hype if you don't hit the heart. Men walk out of the crucible different, all of them. We're not dealing with surface level stuff. When you're a man responsible for things that can produce fear or heaviness, going through that weekend, you're going to hit parts of those with like 100 dudes in your corner. But the way that men champion each other over the weekend and learn how to properly do that as men, real men, was a beautiful thing.
Welcome to the Crucible Project podcast. The Crucible Project is a nonprofit organization committed to creating a world of men and women who live with integrity, grace, and courage, helping them to fulfill their God-given purpose. This podcast will discuss important and sometimes difficult topics while delivering practical life applications with men and women who are currently practicing this work. We are igniting Christ-like change in men and women through experiences of radical honesty and grace.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Crucible Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Mountjoy. I'm joined today by Kellen. So excited to have you here, Kellen. If you would, for our audience, just give a little brief introduction. Tell us who you are.
Yeah, I'm Kellen Cowan. I'm a local Okie, so born and raised in Oklahoma. I've been married going on 14 years. Got a 11-year-old honorary boy and a sweet little 7-year-old girl. I actually work in the technology field, and on the side, the more fun part of that, I run a men's ministry called Band of Brothers.
Awesome. I'm glad you're here and definitely want to hear more, learn more about the Band of Brothers. I know we have multiple men from Crucible, and there's some really exciting connections being made between the two organizations. We'll definitely get into that, and I'm wondering if you would start by just telling us, how did you hear about the Crucible Project?
Yeah, the Crucible Project. So I have men that I've known. We've gone out and we served together. We pray over people together. We've done some really hard things, we're encouragers of men to do that, right? We weren't meant to sit and listen. We want to get out and get active. And so I've done that with some men I really respect. They've got either went to a Crucible weekend, or a couple of them were so heavily impacted that they were serving at the Crucible every single time an event came up, and they were dying to get me out there. We had overlapping schedules with some of our big events and just different events that I was obligated to around town for 5 years.
5 years, okay.
Yeah, I got a text message from my brother Matt and Gabe checking on me, and then said, "Hey, we have a Crucible weekend coming up. Would you pray for us?" And I said, "What weekend?" It was 2 days before it started. And I said, "I have absolutely nothing going on. You guys have asked me to go half of a decade. Give me some details, and how do I get there?" Because of how I view these men. You want to talk about men believing in something. Can you imagine being invited to something passionately by the same people for 5 years? There's something to this, right?
That's persistence, right? That something happened, yeah.
They know that I love changing men too, and they wanted to get me out there. And so I dove into my first weekend with 48 hours notice.
When did you go on your weekend? When did this happen?
Last year.
Curious, hearing that for 5 years, sounds like there's a lot of logistical challenges, but was there anything else coming up for you? Like, oh, I've done this before. Any of those sorts of things percolating around as you hear about this ministry?
I mean, I think that happens for all of us. So I talked to some other guys that finally went. We've gone to a weekend before. Also, it's over a weekend, so you have kids, family, right? There's literal competition there. The other hard thing is, and it's a beautiful thing I don't want people to know, you can't know a lot about the Crucible. You just can't, because it's going to completely, I think men will get this. If I've never seen a movie like Saving Private Ryan or Braveheart, right? And I have a buddy that says, I have to go to this movie. Here's what happens. You wouldn't actually be happy with that friend, right? And so this weekend's that impactful, but there's competition, there's family. I've been to other events. Honestly, there's a lot of men's events and Christian men's stuff that's lackluster. We run a lot of men's events too. And so it would be a favor for a while, but with the persistence and the why behind it, I was led in with, you've got to get here because men need this. You need to see this, because I promise you, there are men around you. We do something different. It's manly. They'll love it, but they're going to walk out changed. And so I dove in head first because of that.
Yeah, that is a real sacrifice.
Yeah. And then there's a payment thing. I kept hearing about that. We do a lot of events, and events cost a lot of money. So the money thing wasn't a hindrance to me, because events cost a lot of money because I run them, right? I will say, going out there's some really well-run men's events. One of them I'm thinking of, John Eldridge, right? And so this is as impactful but different as a John Eldridge event, and it's probably a fourth of the cost. So I know for some guys, because I've had to talk them through it, that paying the amount to go out there, it's actually you pay less than you should, in my opinion, for what you're actually getting.
And that's interesting you say that. And I really respect your view of having done a lot of these, having run this your own for over a decade and being in that world. Yeah, I've talked to other people who have done really adjacent things. Like they'll go to a Tony Robbins weekend, right? And they're just like, it's all this hoorah, and there are all these great tools. But the cost, he's like, for the cost is not even close. Like the value of this is incredible.
We should hit on that. The whole Tony Robbins thing. Men are big on self-improvement, right? And I know men that if they have outbursts or do different things, they know that things are more than skin deep. It's more than just you overcoming it with your mind, right? A lot of those events they'll get you energized and they'll get you some good habits and
Get you
things.
pumped up. Yeah.
Habits don't give you freedom. Right.
Mhm.
So a lot of it's hype if you don't hit the heart. Men walk out of the Crucible different, all of them, because I talked to over 100 of them when we left.
Well, I mean, that hits for me. My own, journey experience. I went to my first weekend 9 years ago, and I've been doing Crucible stuff ever since. Growing up in the church, done a lot of men's weekends, just the skepticism. But on Sunday, on my Crucible weekend, I'm like, okay, yeah, but how am I going to feel Monday? And how am I going to feel Wednesday or a week? And 2 weeks later, I was like, oh my gosh, this really changed me.
Yeah.
So,
There's stuff that you carry in. So my wife's a pastoral counselor.
yeah.
I've done this ministry going on 15 years. We're not dealing with surface level stuff. We deal with deep stuff. We deal with childhood stuff. We deal with the guy spiraling out, never had a model to be a dad, to be a husband, whatever it is, like really deep, important things that you don't rub dirt on. When you're a man responsible for things, the things that can produce fear or heaviness, you can't rub dirt on them. And there's a lot of responsibility there. So we've dealt with those forever. And that's what's beautiful. Going through that weekend, you're going to hit parts of those with like 100 dudes in your corner. And you come out and it's amazing. And also, I'll just say, some guys absolutely suck at making friends, but a lot of us just get too busy and males need male connections. I'm a well-connected person, but the way that men champion each other over the weekend and learn how to properly do that as men, like real men, that was a beautiful thing.
Oh, so cool. So let's get into it. I'm curious. You have been invited forever and then suddenly looked down and was like, all right, 48 hours, go. Is that your MO? Is that more comfortable to like just jump into it, or do you like more planning? How did that actually set you up for your weekend?
I don't really want to know a lot about it. I want to experience it. So that wasn't a bother to me that I didn't have more planning time. But if I had, I don't think it would have changed it. And so I'm into something. I've made a time commitment. I made a financial commitment. And then I had the cool thing was I didn't know who was already there. So a couple of guys I've done ministry with for like 13 years at the time. A couple of the people that were supporting that I don't know there, I've known for 10 years. And so I had some deep connections with some guys.
Gotcha. And so this is participant men and men who are staffing. You've got connections on both sides. Yeah, cool. Cool.
Connections on both sides. And they're not frivolous with where they commit to. They've got some depth to them. It was fun to see them. So I just showed up to the site, man. And within the first 15 minutes, I was like, okay, this weekend's going to change something. These men that are serving are all on the same ship. They're all the same look in their eyes. They're all ready to go. What you jump into with some activities, it's very, very intentional. The communication is incredible and intentional. Some of the sharing, I've never been to an event where each person owned what they were responsible for so well because they knew the outcome.
The staff, and I think this is helpful. I don't know if I've ever brought this up in a podcast before. They've been doing it for years, and there's always, new blood that we want on there, but it's always a really strong staffed container. And then they're doing their work, doing exercises to just show up. And then they show up a couple days early and they're continuing to do their work on the weekend.
My staffed weekend, I would say 80% of them were first-time volunteer. I didn't know they were volunteer. It blew my mind. I thought they were professionals that were on the Crucible staff, right? This is what they did. The way that they communicated, the way they owned their stuff was absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Well, and I think that speaks a lot to your community and the men who are attracted to it and have already been building in themselves, right? Like all those things come together. Going into the weekend, there's some homework. Was there something that stood out to you? I heard you mention you need to go to this weekend so that you know what it is to help other men. But what was it for you?
Like literally, that's the thing is I didn't have anything. And I run a ministry and I'm also very open. I have people that I tell everything to. I have a counselor, a pastoral counselor. You talk to somebody that spends their entire life trying to help you with tools and understand yourself and your mind. It's probably pretty smart to invest there, right? Counselors aren't because you're broken. I've never known more about myself spending years with a top tier counselor. And then my wife's a pastoral counselor. And so we talk through and help a lot of people. There's not a lot there still, right?
Yeah, well, there's not like a lot hidden, right? So I've never told anyone that sort of stuff. And there's a lot of that on the weekend, but not for you. Okay, interesting.
And still, with some of the things that we walk through with other men, man, I've never championed other men more. I've never wanted to fight for men faster. We run a pretty bold ministry, but I've never wanted to be on the front line for another guy faster. I've never seen more breakthrough. I think that's cool because I met a couple guys that didn't want any part of this. Like day one, walking in the first up, they're like, nope, I'm out. And those two guys that were about 380 pound, big old boys, brothers, they were changed when they walked out. They were so happy that they came. And so we're hugging. They were picking me up off the ground because they're much bigger than I am. It was great. But for myself, a couple things. One of the activities, man, it opened up some stuff in me that counseling hadn't, for me to see just some stuff. Like, I run a company, but I'm like, okay, here's why I don't want to let go of that.
Yeah.
And then I got to talk to some guys about it, and they were talking to me about their stuff. And then, man, through part of it, I've never had the opportunity to or champion other guys the way I got to.
Yeah.
And it was probably the most powerful. Like, we use some of those tools to this day. It's some of the most powerful things. It's the kind of stuff that you wish you knew how to do with bold, real dudes when you were 12. Now you're getting to do it, and it's just incredible. And it's not child's play. It's just that impactful because nobody models how we're supposed to really do stuff. There's a lot of areas in life that men just know that they have to just figure it out.
You alluded to it before, that lie that we're alone. And this really sets up that togetherness well. I think it's really held well. So I'm curious if what came up for you is, oh, I didn't see that around your business. What was there, a fear thing or an anger thing? You said, what came up that was a part of that clarity?
Yeah. So, man, emotionally, it was a very emotional moment. I was emotionally sad. I was around other guys. They were working through stuff. They're emotionally pissed, or just a couple of them are emotionally just happy as can be when they got some freedom. I was very sad because it was a season that I couldn't do anything about, but also that without experiencing it, I didn't have any resolve to fix on my own. And so through it, I got complete clarity on what was actually going on, what I had to do. I mean, and it wasn't anything hard. I just a realization of the fact that I had to forgive a couple of things, and walked out, and it was just gone.
Wow, that is hugely impactful.
I'll tell you what else was impactful was, if you look at a lot of, let's just say, high achievers or got people that are winning, they found the right people to run with. And so we're out here at this retreat, you have men championing each other. The way that my heart felt when I left about what other people were able to work through, because I could stand and champion them too. And also just let them be a dude. Like, if you're pissed or if you're crying, whatever happened, right? This is your space to actually be you, and to be able to look at another guy and be like, that's still your name, bro. Let's go do it. There's so many guys that when that stuff was revealed, and and I'm saying it the way I'm saying it to try not to give anything away.
Right.
Like,
yeah. Your experience, but
part of the beautiful part of the experience is how you kind of went to war for other people.
Yeah.
Anybody listen to this, the culture tells us that if the baggage is out, then we're somehow different. Like, it affects our identity. It doesn't. But you're around real men with real depth that see a thing for what it is and want to champion who you are. And so it's healthier to be out there than hidden, right? I know that can be an intimidation for people to go and do anything hard. Is like, what if I'm revealed? Well, dude, if you got a bunch of freaking warriors around you that want to build you up, you kind of need to get this stuff out.
Yep. And I can speak from my weekend. It's intense. These were people who were up there who were leading, who had gone to war, literal war, who had seen, experienced death, and they're up there being really real. That's what made space for me.
And I think that the other great part was Crucible does such a great job of getting a good amount of men there. We had somebody that was ex-military that, I mean, just fighting for our country, had to go through some stuff that nobody wants to experience or say. Somebody there went through the same thing. It already had healing. It was a volunteer, and they went off alone and just dug in, man.
Yeah.
The hard thing is that guy did the right thing. Like, hearing his whole thing, he did exactly what he had to do and still felt shame.
And living with it, right? Just living with it. And I think this is a really helpful thing to highlight, this podcast for people who are thinking of going, this weekend is challenging and it's designed to be challenging, right? The anger, the people get pissed, and then there's tears coming up. That is all designed to bring men to this point where it sounds like one of the big challenges for you was some clarity, some sadness. Were there any other challenges? And I'm interested what you took away from it, or on the end, the far side of it for you.
With where I'm seated, I have a company, and there's some people going through stuff constantly. So being there for them, I have a men's ministry locally that has a couple different sites. We have hundreds of guys, different parts of the year, going through stuff. I got to just be me, pour into dudes and just be a guy. I will say too, we've talked a little bit, Jay, about some of this hard part. It's a big weekend. I was really blown away by how much is done.
How much? Yeah.
We had a ton of fun. There's a lot of time to connect. There's a lot of activities and things that are a ton of impact, fun. You and I are just talking about like a specific special part.
The big impacts. Yeah.
But the micro impacts and the fun that you have with these guys, the relationships you build, That's what's kind of nice too. You're like, man, 2 days. Well, you get to really know some people. I knew the people I was at the weekend with. I didn't show up to something and have one conversation and it was good for me. No, like I went through some hard stuff, learned a bunch of new stuff with a ton of guys that I know well because we did it all together and we spent a lot of quality time together. And I love to be able to spend time together.
Yeah, the design of that weekend, I think, is so well where it's not just fire hose the entire time, right? Like you're just trying to take it in. And I would say my own experience of going back to staff, I think I've staffed 20 some times now around the world. And most of that is selfish just because I get so much out of it. And it brings so much healing and wholeness and grace to my life to serve other men in that way that there actually is a whole fire hose of stuff to digest when I started staffing. And I'm not in my like deep emotional thing. I'm like, oh, there's a lot of great things to learn. So going back to the weekend, some men say like I get more out of staffing it, or as much or more out of staffing it. That's saying a lot.
I learned a lot and had a lot of fun at different parts. But if you're not working at something, I go to the gym in the morning, right? If you're not working at something with some people championing you, so it's not boring work. You get to do it with other people. Men don't leave drifting, which is super cool. Also, we rode with some people down and then we rode with some people back that were local to where we were. And so we got to unpack it. We waited an hour to say goodbye to people because we were talking to each other so long and people were saying their goodbyes. That says a lot.
I'm curious, as you get back into your world, back into your ministry, what do you notice are the changes? It sounds like your wife has some really powerful lenses of being a pastoral counselor. Did you get any kind of reflections back on yourself as you got out of the weekend?
Yeah. I couldn't wait to get back and talk through a couple of the specifics with her. I was so excited and some of the freedom stories without naming names. And then, man, I was rested. I got back and she said, how was it? I was like, I needed it. It ministered to me for the whole time because I wasn't carrying this or doing whatever. And I was filled up. And I mean, like filled up, not physically, but like I felt good and heard and so overjoyed. Like when I got back, I was still talking about a couple of people and so excited for them.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why I go back to staff. I think that feeling of fullness. And for me, it's like I'm constantly working to like, okay, don't dam this up. Don't like hold all this back. And I get to a week and I have this dam that breaks within me. And then I just come back feeling good.
I felt complete. I really was very thankful for the weekend. Like I came out like, that was the best decision I made.
How did your work feel or shift or look differently after coming back from that weekend?
I wasn't having to hold on to as much. There was a couple little things I was still holding on to. And because I knew why, I was free to let them go. I lived in a frame that things have to be done just so well. As you're growing anything, there's some things that need to be worked on that your passion or talents and also your years of doing what you're doing. It really takes that to work on those top tier things. And you've got to be okay with people working on something 80% as well as you and developing. But there's a couple things I hadn't let go of, but I figured out where they came from. And once I knew that wasn't actually my decision, that's a deep point, right? Like I'm holding on to something, but I really wasn't. Once I had clarity on it, I never actually wanted to hold that. I couldn't physically do it without getting to the root of what it was.
That's an interesting thing. Yeah. And I can say I've found that also of like, I'm not consciously holding on to this, but something going on inside some part of me. I don't know how this works. I have the language. Once there's clarity, that moves. Okay. So the final part. Yeah. Tell me more about the Band of Brothers, how long you've been doing that and how the Crucible has impacted that, how the Band of Brothers impacted your Crucible, back and forth.
Yeah. I had my life kind of squirrely, 19 to 22, athlete, dad's coach, pour some shoulders, knees up. And so you just drive into anything, but nothing was complete. Like I didn't like anything, even though I did it well because sports was gone and that's all I'd kind of ever known. So I got around the wrong scene. I was a bouncer and worked at a bunch of bars, had 3 jobs, but I was doing that through college and got around the wrong people. Took my life into a nosedive. And then, man, I got impacted, surrendered everything to Jesus and really had an encounter is what it took, and saw that I was justifying that people around me were worse, but just how screwed up everything was. So I started serving teens, and then an older guy that continued to pour in and encourage me. Saw a lack, and there usually is. If you go to a church building, there's a lack of men engaged and men served. So usually women. We got together and got a bunch of guys together to walk through really just a foundational rescue work. Let's quit drifting. Like, let's quit playing this thing. Quit showing up at church to be a good person. That's not what it's for. God's available for everybody. Like, let's get to the root of this thing and get in the word. Know it for ourselves. The sermon's not bad. I just mean that's not your walk with the Lord, is just to show up and listen. That's making you feel better in your own performance, or you're trying to appease your wife. Like stop being a lukewarm dude. And so we dug in a rally cry, 10-week curriculum, and then 330 guys showed up. Like, men are hungry for it. Put together, the guy that was walking with me put together a curriculum that was a little clearer, but it's all about the culture of what we're doing. We're completely open, completely ready to do work. We'll have a big group, but then we have a squad of 10 to 12 dudes, and we run through these 10 weeks together. We're handing that guy the keys of accountability. Say, here's what I'm committing to this next week. Call me, follow up, let's get lunch. So we do life together. We get off site, we serve together, we break things, we burn things. It's a manly men's ministry. It's not a men's group. We don't sit and talk about surface level garbage. We don't open a Bible, read a passage, and call it discipleship. Discipleship is on the move. And so I've done that for about 15 years. Really what the Crucible Weekend did is we've started just pressing more into the depths of things. We've started running quarterly like leader retreats. We've incorporated some of the things from the weekend. It's the communication and building piece, and that's all discipleship. And man, they've just left with that same feeling, and it's made a huge impact. We've incorporated a lot of the tools into the topics that God's given us, and the men just, they eat it up. That's where I've encouraged them, like, hey, if you like these breadcrumbs, they're amazing, impactful activities, but they're breadcrumbs compared to this weekend. You really need to go. And it'll blow your mind. You're going to come back full. You're going to get to love on other people. You're going to get some freedom. And even if it's not huge freedom for you, let's say you've done a ton of work, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, so-and-so, if I can just get him out here, his life will be different forever.
Yeah. I had that sense on my weekend, and then to have done it for a decade now, I've seen men stay in the work and it changes and then maybe drift, and then have seen the men come back and be like, I really needed this. This is really good stuff.
I love what else is available. I love the volunteering. I also got in a Crucible group. It overlapped with our Band of Brothers at some point, but throughout our off season, I sat in a Crucible group every Monday, and some of that work's just continued, and it's just as amazing. But again, if you'll just get out there, you have all this opportunity with guys that are all in, that lead well, they've got your back. And then there's a lot more to come. You're in a community that really cares, and they care about you, your freedom, your marriage, your walk. So it's a healthy group for any man.
One thing that stuck out to me, and I might have the numbers off, so let me know if I missed this, but starting the Band of Brothers and getting married seemed like relatively the same time. What happened there, if you're willing to share some of that story?
Man, it was really funny. One of the things that I broke free of was dating too many women at the same time. You're out living worldly. So I came to Christ, wasn't dating anybody. And I saw this person like 3 different places, a year and a half after not talking to a woman, period. It was time for my healing, time for me to be built up. It ended up, my sister called me. So I'm 24, my sister's 19, and said, hey, I don't know what I want to do. I'm working at this bank. I'd been a professional for a couple of years, had a career, doing well. She's like, I want to pick your brain. And I went to pick her up. And this girl I'd seen 3 times that I'm like, I literally told God, I was like, why am I distracted? I'm supposed to be focused on this. It ended up being her boss. So pursued her, had the greatest friendship for about 6 months. And then we dated, heavily involved in youth ministry. I got the shift to men's ministry. And it just happened to be when God opened that door up was around.
And so, sorry, was she already a pastoral counselor? Was that something that came later? She was headed that way?
She was working at a bank and a Pilates instructor, and then went full times in Pilates. And then God's opened up that door to pastoral ministry. And then with the shift and working for a couple people, and money can change people. Not saying anything bad about anybody, but they didn't hold to their core values. So one of my business associates and I started our own company 10 years ago. We're 11 years now. And that move made room. This job opportunity to get certified and go into pastoral counselor came up for her. She's had a ton of trauma as a kid, free from all of it, but from counselors, traveled the world for years. And that's what she wanted to do. And it allowed for the margin for her to get certified. And then even now, she has a good book of clients and people, but there's a lot of need, and there's a lot of people that have a need that don't have financial means. There's more of that thing. And so she does almost all free work.
Wow. That's super cool. Awesome story. Anything else you want to say about Band of Brothers, your own experience?
I think really one of the things that's most beneficial for any man is being in a space where you can just be yourself. Being authentically you leads to some incredible freedom, some incredible self-reflection, especially around people that care. We do that at Band of Brothers, but that happened at Crucible. Also, some things about manhood, some of the frames that are set up and an understanding of what that means as a man by the time you're gone, it's freaking great. I walked in some of it, but couldn't articulate it. And you guys literally define it. They walk in it. You leave with a frame of understanding. In my life as a man, I am going to be this, or this, right? But I know what that means. And I've done it with other guys. And that's half the fear. And fear's a door, it's an opponent, but unbelief in yourself is a door to fear. And the reason that you're living in fear is nobody's modeled it with you. You hadn't already done it once. So you leave equipped with a bunch of these great things that you didn't walk in equipped with. And you need those as a man. If we're talking to a bunch of guys listening to this, which I hope we are, or their wives, but if we're talking about a bunch of guys, you need some people that you trust to call about your kid and your wife at some point. Life's going to get hard because it's stuff that you can't control. So you need some people you can count on, but you also need some freedom in some areas that'll help you be a better husband and a better father. So if any of you guys need a group and some things that will provide some of that freedom that you've always wanted, you need to get out and go to Crucible. Start taking action on that kind of stuff. And we talked through, Jay, all the resistance. Well, it's a weekend, but the work is to uproot stuff in you for you to be more free, for you to be surrounded by guys that you've probably want to call or interact with before, and have this community that's always kind of there for you, which you need in crisis, and to come back to family. If you're great, even better, right? But to come back different. And so it's worth your time. And then, like I said, I've looked at several of the others and some of these big events, especially like a John Eldridge. If this is just as deep of an experience and it's a fourth of the cost, and you just can't know what you're getting out of it, right? Because that's for you. It's going to spoil the movie, and you don't want anybody to walk you into Braveheart and tell you what happened.
Yeah. We let men know it's challenging, and I also like to say in the podcast, there's also a Crucible for women, and then for the Crucible Project, there's this initiation weekend, and then there are additional second level weekends for mission and purpose, for sexuality, for leadership, and I've done and staffed all of those multiple times because, again, I'm going back for me. Yeah, so thank you so much, Kellen. I love the frame that you left there of kind of living in fear and being willing to jump in, and mostly for modeling that and leading it. I appreciate your heart. I appreciate you showing up and doing this. I want to give you the final word. Anything else you want to say, and then we'll say goodbye.
Man, if I had something final to say, if you're listening to this and you're going through something, God knows, and there's a reason that this came up. Any way that God talks is on purpose. And so it can be through this podcast or anything else, but he may be specifically speaking to you. You need to go to the weekend, but outside the weekend, the name of Jesus brings you to God. We, with a holy God, made a mistake and it separated us, and he loved us and came running back, and he just wants to know you. So if you're hurting right now, he's available through the name of Jesus, and believing and knowing that God loved you so much to sacrifice all of it so that he could hear your voice and he can walk with you and guide you through where you're at.
Amen. All right, Kellen, appreciate it. We'll say goodbye to everybody.
Thanks for volunteering.
For more information about our weekends, please go to thecrucibleproject.org. Or if you're ready to get started on your transformational journey right now, you can connect with one of our Crucible certified coaches for a free 30-minute session at thecrucibleproject.org/coaching. That's thecrucibleproject.org/coaching. If you like what you heard, connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Rate and review wherever you are listening, and don't forget to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform. Thank you for listening.